What do you think is the creepiest / most disturbing unsolved mystery ever? Story 1. The Cleveland Torso Murderer. From 1935 to 1938, there was a serial killer who chopped off the heads and appendages of 12 to 20 people and left their torsos for people to find. The famous detective Elliot Ness was on the case, and the killer taunted him by leaving 2 torsos within full view of his office. The killer was never identified, nor were the majority of the victims. Story 2. Honestly, the Cape Intruder isn't disturbing, just weird as hell. During the night in Cape, Maine, in like 2005, people who kept their doors unlocked would wake up to find a man staring at them, and he would quickly flee. No people were ever injured and nothing was ever stolen. They just watched people sleep, apparently. Story 3. The Setagaya Family Murder. Late on the night of December 30th, 2000 in Setagaya, Tokyo, a man broke into the house of a family of 4, strangled the son in his bed, stabbed the father, and brutally killed the mother and daughter. The killer then spent hours in the house eating their food, using their toilet, and going through their paperwork like he owned the place, and eventually left, never to be found since. Story 4. The Hinterkaifeck. Murders always freaked me out. I've read quite a bit about it, and it sounds like it was probably a neighbor. But the creepy part is that the killer was probably living / hiding out in the attic for multiple days beforehand. I read about this for the first time when I went on a multi-night hiking trip. I stayed in cabins. The first night, there was a loft above where we were sleeping. I stared at it all night. Story 5. There's a case near my hometown of a young woman who was driving along while on the phone with her parents. While driving, she saw a car on the side of the road with hazards, and a man outside near his car looking distressed. She told her parents about this, and said she was pulling over to see if he needed any help. As she pulls over, the man by his car starts walking over. As she's telling her parents this, he pulls a gun on her. She starts panicking and screaming, "He's got a gun! He's got a gun! He's coming to the car, dash!" And the line went dead. She hasn't been found. Story 6. Technically not unsolved since everyone can guess what happened to her, but it's one of the creepiest IMO. Alyssa Turney was a teenager who disappeared in 2001. Her stepfather, Michael Turney, was obsessed with her. He stalked her at work, put cameras in the vents to spy on her, and made her sign contracts to say he never molested her. Michael picked her up from school early on May 17, 2001, and she's never been seen since. Her half-sister, Sarah Turney, has an amazing podcast called Voices for Justice, which explains the case in detail, and because of her, Michael Turney was arrested in August 2020. Story 7. The death of Rebecca Zahau has stuck with me. Zahau's nude body was found hanging from a balcony, with her wrists and ankles bound and hands behind her back. Her death was ruled a suicide. As if that wasn't strange enough, 2 days prior to her death, the 6-year-old son of her boyfriend fell down a staircase and died. His death was ruled an accident. Story 8. I can't remember his name, but there was a case of a college-age young man, Brian I think is his first name, who was reported missing after a night out. There's security camera footage of him entering a bar, but absolutely no footage of him leaving. Like he went into the bar and just flat out dropped off the face of the earth. The last I knew, he's never been found and nobody knows what happened to him. ETA Brian Schaefer, who went missing from Columbus, Ohio. Thanks, Reddit. Also ETA, since it keeps coming up, the bar was on a second floor at that time with only one public entrance/exit. The police extensively reviewed all the security camera footage. Brian and everyone else who was there that night was seen on camera entering the bar. Everyone, except for Brian, who was at the bar that night, was seen on camera leaving the bar. Which would nix any theories that he left wearing different clothes/disguised as someone else/mixed in with the crowd. Story 9. There's a similar one in the UK. A guy called Corey McKeague. After going out drinking with friends, he became separated. There's CCTV of him walking into a dead end which had several large wheelie bins/dumpsters. It's thought he fell asleep in one of the dumpsters and was accidentally lifted into the bin lorry. Despite a huge search of landfill and tracing his mobile, his body has not been found, and he is now presumed dead. Story 10. The case of Adam immediately came to mind, unidentified male child whose torso was discovered in the River Thames in London, United Kingdom, on September 21, 2001. Dubbed Adam by police officers, the unidentified remains belong to a black male, around 4 to 8 years old, who had been wearing orange girls' shorts. The post-mortem showed that Adam had been poisoned, his throat had been slit to drain the blood from his body, and his head and limbs had been expertly removed. Investigators believe the child was likely from southwestern Nigeria, and that several days before his murder, he was trafficked to the United Kingdom for a Mudi ritual sacrifice. To date, nobody has been charged with Adam's murder, and his true identity remains unknown. Story 11. In the early 80s, all within 18 months of each other, 3 paperboys in the Des Moines, Iowa area all went missing during their morning route. The cases have never been solved. There are theories ranging from a pedophilia ring, an ex-employee who was a creeper kidnapping them, and even a lone wolf type situation. It's a bizarre case that has baffled Iowa for years. Story 12. The disappearance of the Beaumont children. The Beaumont children are siblings who disappeared in 1966. There are still to this day investigations ongoing to try and find the remains of these children. There have been foundations of sheds and houses dug up. The children have never been found and the suspects has never been identified. Story 13. I remember watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode about a person in 1977 who would send creepy anonymous letters to random folks in a small town. Actually threatening ones, too. The sender started by mailing up a woman and telling her, if I remember right, that they knew she was cheating on her husband with a superintendent, something she vehemently denied. Then they threatened her husband by saying he'd be in danger if he did not stop the affair. The couple decided to take it upon themselves to hunt the sender down. That ended with the husband dead in his crashed pickup truck. The sender kicked the wife while she was down by leaving threatening signs along her bus route, at least one of which had an actual booby trap on it. They found and arrested a suspect, but it's still unknown today if he's the actual sender. He denies it. The idea that somebody has been quietly studying your life just so they could begin to anonymously blackmail you, or make up a rumor to blackmail you with, is pretty damn scary. Addendum. In 2021, a forensics professional claimed that the police were right all along and the suspect who was released by then was the sender. But the massive hole in her claim is how he was still able to write letters during his time in prison. Story 14. In 1969, a student was killed in the stacks of the library at my old college, Penn State, and was found with a singular stab wound on her chest. It wasn't even late or anything, and while there were many suspects, no one was ever arrested for it. It's insane how someone could kill a person in broad daylight at a major university and get away with it. It's not really anything super crazy, in comparison to other stories here. It's just weird to me personally because I would always study there and I didn't find out about it until after I graduated. Story 15. In my opinion, it's the city of San Francisco train derailment that occurred in Hardin, NV on August 12, 1939. The train, run by the Southern Pacific Railroad at the time, derailed at a bridge over the Humboldt River at a speed range of 60 to 90 miles per hour. The accident resulted in 24 fatalities and multiple injuries. Days later, investigators discovered tools at the bottom of the Humboldt River, determining that the wreck was caused by sabotage of the rails. Story 16. Boy in the Box, 1957 Philadelphia. Warning: graphic details. This story just makes me so sad and sticks out to me as a true crime junkie, especially with the recent case of a child being found in a Las Vegas suitcase that is still under investigation. Basically, a young boy whose age was estimated to be 3 to 7 years old was found in a box naked and mutilated with bruises on the side of a road in Philadelphia. It was strange because the boy appeared to have been very malnourished, but was recently groomed, haircut, fingernails all trimmed. He was covered in scars, some surgical, suggesting he had previously been taken care of. Evidence suggests he was taken care of by a possible parent/guardian before he was taken into custody of his abuser. Cause of death determined to be blunt force trauma. How anyone could do something like this is just foul and disturbing to say the very least. The worst part is, it's just a big mystery, almost nothing to go off of. There wasn't anyone matching his description reported missing. There wasn't any record of this kid, his pure existence was a mystery. Nothing came of the case, even all these years later. There were some leads, but they didn't result to much, despite heavy media coverage and a search to find who this boy was. Some theories include that his parents did this to him, which would explain why he was previously in good condition, then they never reported him missing after they killed him. And back then it was easier to not have record of a child that probably or wasn't born in a hospital. That he was a victim of sex trafficking. The cleaning and grooming of him before he was dumped wasn't to pay some sort of respect to him, but to remove of evidence that might have been on his body, or any defining features like his hair. What happened to him, and who did this? Why the box? Why was he kept malnourished, but haphazardly groomed before being dumped on the side of the road? Who is he? Story 17. Jessica Chambers. She was set on fire in her car and had gasoline poured down her throat. Paramedics found her walking down the lane on fire. The only part of her body that wasn't burned was the bottom of her feet. She did not survive. Police found a suspect but did not have enough evidence to charge him. Paramedics were so traumatized by what they saw, they had to go through therapy, and broke down on stage during interviews. She tried to name her attacker, but her throat was so destroyed, she couldn't be understood. Story 18. Just yesterday my colleague told me a personal account of a kidnapping of her friend. This happened when colleague and her friend were 10 years old. One day, instead of going straight home, as they usually did, they went to the store to buy some candy. When they left the store, some guy stopped them. He started talking to the friend all like, "Your dad sent me to take you home. I totally know you since you were baby. Blah blah blah." Heavily paraphrased, but you get the gist of it. So the friend got convinced that he really is there to take her home, so she agreed to go with him. This guy also offered ride to my colleague as well, but she refused, and so this guy just drives with the friend. There was a police search and everything. 25 years has passed since then, and no trace of her was ever found. Colleague thinks that he picked her friend specifically because they were athletes at the time and the school put their photos in the newspaper quite often. Story 19. The Ibadan Forest of Horror in Nigeria. A local taxi driver goes missing and his friends create a makeshift search party and investigate a forest. Instead of finding their friend, they find an abandoned school or factory that have the remnants of a hellish torture/murder, ritual killing and human trafficking. 8 survivors were rescued. Numerous body parts, rotting corpses and personal artifacts were found. The perpetrators were never found, although local politicians and ritualists were suspects. Whilst this discovery is disturbing, the mystery for me is that the original taxi driver still hasn't been found. Story 20. The disappearance of Zeb Quinn. He was 18 years old when he went missing in 2000. Was working his shift at a local Walmart, and afterwards wanted to look at a new car with a colleague, when he allegedly received a call that made him take off frantically. After that he was never seen again. The strangest thing is that a few days later his car was found in a parking lot, with the headlights turned on, a pair of lips and an exclamation mark drawn on the back window in pink lipstick, and a live Labrador puppy sitting inside. In 2017 the colleague was arrested for his murder, but all the strange details still make no sense at all.